Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby! Hello! We are back for another week. This week, Paul Winter.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Yeah, managing like busy life, busy happy wife, happy life.
Oh wow, that's very optimistic. I love that. All right then. So it's another week for Tourney Ground, and this week, as I said, joined by Paul Winter, who is the Chelmsford Bunker Club President. Club President didn't fit in his full title, so I just had to cut it down to President. And he's going to be talking to us all about the LGT 2023, what he's got lined up, kind of like a lot of his thoughts into what he's kind of thinking about the event itself in terms of decisions on what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what kind of things he's prepping for, anything that he's got going on for the weekend as a whole. And Paul will take us through all of the kind of thoughts and things that he's got, and of course we'll talk to Paul about his experience of A Song, Ice and Fire and all of that fun stuff in a minute. But first of all, the news. If anyone is under a rock in the A Song of Ice and Fire world, 2023 has seen the release of Season 2 of 2021.
The patch that was promised.
The patch that was promised, yes. So, people have been playing games. People will be saying, why is the stat site not up to date? Carlo has only just got back from his holidays today. He's been working on it today. He may be working long into the night getting it sorted, because I think he's got some other things planned as well. So, it should be updated in the next day or so. He said initially it would be updated by today, but jet lag is a thing. So yeah, be wary of that just into the coming days. Probably by Wednesday is the time I gave last week. So the stat site will be updated. Everything will be available on there. And yes, people in chat already. It's called 2021 Season 2. Yeah. I mean, at least we can say this, right? 2021 plus 2 is at least 2023. So it's kind of the right year.
I don't really understand the naming of it, to be honest, but whatever, as long as they did it. Sure, whatever.
Yeah. I think it's purely on the basis of it's using the same core rule book from 2021, which I still think is not a particularly good precedent to set because they have changed things in the rule book, certainly at Season 1, so
yeah.
Maybe it's whatever. Anyway, that is what's happening, guys. That's the news. If you didn't know, Season 2 is out. People have been playing games. People have been enjoying their games, which is, I think, the biggest thing. There's a lot of people saying that games are fun, which is good. That is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, isn't it? Fun is why you play the game.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not like a chore or no one's paid to do it.
No. It'll be crazy, wouldn't it, if people said, you know what, I play this game for 3 or 4 games a week and I hate it every time I play it. And I'm like, I mean, no offense, mate. Perhaps this isn't the game for you.
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, exactly.
And there are people like that. I mean, I love the game, of course, and there isn't much you could do to make me not love the game. But yeah, it definitely have seen it happen. All right then. So we'll dive into the main segment of today, which is, of course, talking to Paul and his lovely experience in running events, of course, local events and other events, but then also Song, Ice and Fire. So, Paul, I think this is the bit where the game show is meant to go, tell us what's your name and where you're from, that whole thing. Where are you from? Who are you, and what's your experience been with A Song, Ice and Fire? How'd you get into the game?
Yeah, cool. So I'm from Chelmsford, Essex. And I'm the current president. I've been president of the Chelmsford Bunker Club this is my second year in charge, though I am an original founding member, and it was established, you can see, in 1999 in someone's garage.
Oh wow!
when I was like 16. So yeah, I think I was being groomed at the time, but looking back on it, it's one of those things that does not age well. Anyway, yeah, it's all so what to say, from Chelmsford, a bit playing the Song of Ice and Fire. I backed it as a Kickstarter with one of our club members, one of the guys in our club, and so is that 2017? Is that when the Kickstarter was?
I want to say, 2017. I think is right. That sounds about right. Yeah.
And was really into I still am really into the IP. Though I never read the books first, I watched the TV series. I watched the TV series and then started reading the first book and realised the book was going to spoil the second TV series. So I just kept it to the TV series. So all the things like the Red Wedding and everything were a complete it was gripping TV for me at the time. Mm-hmm. And with it, it's okay. Also then had this game system that sounded really interesting, and it sounded like it was doing it the right way in terms of from the book series. And I can talk quite a bit about my thoughts on the game system in general and what it needs to do, I think. And this is just my opinion, going forward in the future. But yeah, it's cool. It's when back in it originally, those who had played the game when it's first edition, first iteration, as in it's significantly better than it was. And in my experience, the updates have only ever helped it. I can remember, I've always been playing Lannisters, although I do play other factions in tournaments, and that's part of the reason that will inform one of the questions about the event, is because of different factions I played in events. Sorry, I'm getting some shit from my gaming club at the moment. I'm best and Chero are watching. Good job putting, guys. Thanks very much. So yeah, it's I can remember playing Cersei Lannister in the very first game on release, and you had panic damage was the amount you failed the test by. And you would I put Cersei Lannister on crowns and zap you for a -2, and now you've lost 10 wounds or something. And it was that is that right? That seems a lot. But I did. I'd always played Warhammer, and to me, A Song of Ice and Fire was a modern version of Warhammer.
Fantasy.
And it's a Warhammer Fantasy, and that was this because Warhammer Fantasy had always, it's going to come back, isn't it? Apparently, as Old World or something, whatever that means. But it had its issues in terms of unit sizes. For example, I'd always play Skaven as Warhammer, and it's I could run a block of 100 Skaven slaves with their because of the rules, you could get them as re-rollable leadership 10, with a BSB, and it's they're too brave and they're also too then blocky on the table. And the fact that essentially all song models are wound markers, and it fixes the unit sizes in place, fixes so many issues of an unbound rank and flanks game that it was always and that's one of the reasons why it's kept my interest, I guess. Though I'll admit, in the effort of other game systems taking your attention, I hadn't solidly played it since 2017, because to be honest, in its early editions, it wasn't the game it was now. Mm-hmm. But since the season 2021 update, it got significantly better. And I've been running monthly events at our gaming club of Song, and ran them all January to December of last year, so 12 events. And now we continued running events every month, and it's steel sharpen steel. Essentially, now as a clutch of players, we're finding out okay, it's what was getting too good, and we were coming to the same conclusions that was being seen in other metas. And then when we'd play in other metas, we'd see the issues that were popping up. And but that's inevitable if you play something quite a lot. It's you're going to find the things that are good, aren't you? Basically, mm-hmm. It's you will do. But as a punter to this, in terms of a player of a game system, okay, they have the yearly updates. Some people want it more, but again, that yearly is better than no update or infrequently update. It's like, and that's great to experience, because then it reinvigorates people to the game system again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I do definitely harken back to your old Cersei Lannister days back in when I first picked up Free
in my
Folk.
head of something that was like, oh my god, that's out of the box good in terms of the stuff. And I was just like, that doesn't seem right, but it was right. And they went, and as I say, if you've only played Song of Ice and Fire in the past year or two, you won't know what you don't know in terms of, and there being two factions, that's it, or three, if you counted neutrals as a faction, and it's that's all there was. And but it's something that in terms of the hobbyist in me that really likes about Song of Ice and Fire is the fact that everything is ready out of the box go. It's you can turn up to an event and buy something and use it straight away. That's amazing. That's hang on. That's at the moment I'm on my painting table here, which you can't see off camera, is a Horus Heresy, army, and the amount of hobby that takes to get on the table, is just unbelievable. And it's like comparing it to Song, where it's there can be no hobby if it's coloured plastic if you want it to be. There's no there's no issues. Yeah.
I think that is for me, because I do enjoy one side of the hobby. I mean, literally got some stuff here. There's a selection of greens for you. You can probably tell what I've been painting. For me, the hobby is a great part of that, and I do enjoy the hobby. But I always viewed the hobby when it came to playing the game as a bit of a chore. I really don't like this idea of, if you want to go to an event this weekend, you have to paint it, and it's well, hang on, I actually want to spend time on it and do a nice job at my own pace, because not everyone has the schedules and things. And you're right, the fact that you can turn up and literally get a box out and be like, this is the first time I've perhaps even opened this box, but I know what's in here, and this is what I want it, and this is, it doesn't matter.
Or borrowing somebody else's stuff, in terms of getting, I've played Martells in a few tournaments and borrowed them from somebody to get to use them, and it's just there you go. They're you're borrowing coloured plastic models that they're not so precious about, because there are some of the sculpt. I mean, also these songs Simon's sculpting has gotten better. When for example, I owned Lannisters from day one, and when they redid Lannister halberdiers and swordsman, I was like, I have to get them. But it's so there's me. So if you can, and I've my painted my stuff for ages. But if you can make me want to redo them because they're better sculpts, that's a good sign, isn't it? I have halberdier kneeling. It was the kneeling halberdier that did it. It was he's kneeling, and it's he's in the front rank then. And it's it's just, that's really good. It's they're going from strength to strength in terms of as a company in terms of designing the game and things. But when you come to quiz me about that, I do have my concerns about the future of it, and it's how I would address it. But I'm just and why would anyone care about my opinion? Well, I have been playing games my whole life, and I'm a big champion of Warmaster, which is the 10 mil scale epic war, epic warhammer system.
Got a Warmaster army somewhere over here, somewhere in the
right,
in the cupboard.
And I love that game, and so that's my other big game system that I am part of the scene of, in terms of I'm one of the hosts of Warmaster podcast, which is the podcast that I do for Warmaster, and it's from a cast of one show. That's it. And I'm part of the international rules committee that updates Warmaster. So it's which does a yearly update, etc. as well. And that is very much to me a classic war game in terms of it's on it's on a big 6x4 table. It looks very pretty. It plays lovely. And that's the game. That's literally the game I started playing when I was 16.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Getting into, I mean, you follow the same path. I think a lot of people that Song kind of background people have had, in that ultimately we're all starting from the likes of a GW product, be it Warhammer Fantasy, Warmaster, or something like that, and evolved from that into playing Rank and Flank, and then ultimately, and I think this is where A Song of Ice and Fire, and we've said it before, I think, on the show, but it's really captured the imaginations of a lot of player base. Certainly in the UK, I do think it's big in the UK for this reason, and it's because Warhammer Fantasy disappeared, and there wasn't a replacement that was really good enough. Don't get me wrong, I know that Mantic stuff is like decent, and it, some people have been saying it's really good, but it just never took off in the UK properly, and Song has filled that gap, I think, since 2017. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, I mean, me, so like, I backed the Kickstarter and we played it quite a few times, but then it got beat out because there wasn't many other players. But then it really came back hard in the 2021 update for like us as like a gaming club, and in terms of and also it helps that I'm an organizer by nature, like clearly, and it's like and I running regular events really helped grow a scene. Like if you want to quiz me about, if someone has questions about, I'd like to grow a Song scene, but I just don't know how to do it, and it's like I can give. I've managed it, and I like and I believe, I'm told, that the Chelmsford Bunker is one of the most active scenes of Song around. I don't know if it, it's like because I have been surprised that when you hear about these like American events, Simon is an American company, and then you see the numbers at like their biggest event, and it's like it's not that many, and you're like. As in, I mean, I know there's lots of reasons why that is the case, but it is like, oh, okay. It's like, it's the fact that the biggest Song event has been so far the previous LGT is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think it's a testament to the community as well. I'll always say that I think COVID helped. I think a lot of players during COVID, ironically, couldn't play their normal war games and stuff, and I think the online scene for A Song of Ice and Fire was strong, and it did keep the game growing. And then when COVID keeps coming out, you've got certain players going, like likes of Dan and people like that, coming back to the local clubs going, hey, hang on guys, this game is still being played, and obviously know Dan Harwood from your club, and straight away you're like, yeah, okay, Dan, I'll play some games with you, this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden you get that momentum because it's not just you playing it, but they know of like other people across the country are playing it, other people across the world, and it hits this kind of like, it's not about one person playing it, it's about one person seeing one person play it. And it only needs you and Dan to play at the local club a couple of times, and the likes of Paul and other regulars come down and go, actually, this looks pretty good. Do you mind if we play? And
So what I found is, I agree with you. What I found as a gaming club is that you'll always, like, the gateway drug at the moment is always has been 40k. In our gaming club, there's always games of 40k getting played because that is the thing you can see on the high street. That has got the most presence. But then when people come to a gaming club and they see all these other game systems getting played they've never heard of before, like in terms of, and why would they? Because there isn't like a Song shop, is there, somewhere? And then like, is it like this shop is called Song and that's what it sells? And it's like, and then they catch them that way in terms of like, it's cool. It's like, it's in. If we're discussing the widest, I've never known a game system to have such problems with supply. Like I've never known that, but and I was just like unbelievable, But there we that is the game system that it is.
It is. You are completely right there. This is. I've known companies have issues with supply, and I have known companies to circulate less than perhaps they could. But there is a difference between circulating less than they could and simply not circulating.
But it just seems like it's like, I mean, are Red Cloaks still not out in UK?
Correct. Which is 2 years. It is nearly 2 years since they were released.
Like, to allow us to play, that's just like, what? Like I've already evolved beyond them. It's like, oh my god, So anyway, carry on with your questions, sir. I will answer.
Well, no, that's absolutely fantastic. It's a great introduction to yourself, and also not just yourself, but also the club as well down in Chelmsford. Now, Yeah. So I guess that leads me on to, you touched on your favourite faction, the Lannisters.
I think that's because I identify with being a Lannister. To be honest, it's in like some Southerner who's just like like has alternative motives, etc. It's like you always imagine yourself as Jaime Lannister, but you're fucking not, are you? You're like you're just a stupider version of Tyrion. I like I like their style of play, though. I have not, by all means, I have not played them exclusively, but not at all. And at times, there's before our lovely update as patch has come out, there's been times where I just can't beat the free folk with Lannisters, and I was like, I just tried and tried. I could beat I could beat a player who not as experienced with using free folk, but not a good player. No. No matter what I did, So it's but that game balance is a thing, and so it's. I mean, I play in my own events because I wanted to. I'm always going to. Like, I'm not though I'm giving up my weekend for the LGT on behalf of others. That is my hobby. Isn't to give it up so I run a hobby for somebody else. It's like so I'm always going to play in my own events. And I do try to win, unbelievably, but I'm yet to win one of my own events yet, which I guess is a very British thing to do.
That is a very good thing as well, because it means that from a TO perspective and things like that, it would be very odd, and I think a lot of people would question it if you're playing in your own events and then winning them all the time. That would be kind of like, bit sus.
Yeah, I guess a bit stuff. I mean, but like, I'll take my own prize, will I? Much, hey, thanks for all your pay. You're funding it.
You allowed me to buy this thing that I really wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, that's respectable. Especially with monthly tournaments like that as well. It's very different than one-off tournaments.
I got told by someone that I was the most experienced TO of the system around. Like, as in, like Chris had told me that, and I was like, am I? As in, I do try to have like no stress in terms of running these events, in terms of as in, I'll expect adults to be adults, and I'll answer rules questions as needed and resolve things, but ultimately I expect adults to act like adults. And so I don't I try to, I guess I'm not very heavy handed in terms of with it.
Which is fair enough, that has at events that can definitely be a style, and I think works very well, especially in kind of like homegrown clubs as well, like you've got, where it's not just a case of you'll get some people traveling from perhaps out of the area, whatever, to come and play, but the vast majority of the club is established players with established relationships already. So you expect that element of not chivalry's the wrong word, but it's probably the best one I can think of quickly, between players, in that they should be able to resolve a lot of their issues themselves anyway, because they can't do it on a weekend club night. They can't do it on a club night.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you got to remember that when you play a war game like this, you're entering a social contract with somebody in terms of and if I mean, having played Magic the Gathering in the past and stuff, and I'm like, Magic the Gathering plays very different players from wargamers, but it just and that's why I stopped playing Magic the Gathering. But it is just like, you do enter this social contract with somebody that you are both you're both trying to win, of course, because what's the point in it if you're not? But you are equally you meant to be gracious in defeat, gracious in victory, and pleasant in defeat, in terms of and play everything correctly. Not let yourself get pushed over or bullied if you think something's wrong, but equally be as in if you do have a direct contradiction of I think it's that way, I think it's that way, come to an agreement and then call the team on, I guess.
Definitely. It's interesting there that you mentioned Magic as well. It's exactly the same experience I had, as much as I love Magic as a game system, and I've been playing Magic since I was born, basically.
That is the only game when I did my tours, I did in Afghanistan. That was the only game I saw being played by soldiers taking a knee in Afghanistan. It was just they're playing Magic the Gathering. And I was like, so it can travel. Like, yeah.
It's great. But yeah, you're right. Definitely, it's unfortunately an experience that I'd have definitely faced on Friday Night Magic, right, in a local store, where I'd went down as a completely casual song player who was like, I wonder what the event scene is like and things like that, and I went down to a Friday Night Magic, and it was exactly like you said. It was enough to make me not want to go again because it was unpleasant. And that's.
I mean, for me, it's just like, it's so simple, but it's like the way that you in Magic, like you do your move, and you say, right, I'm done now, and it's your turn. And it's like one guy just like the way. So that simple thing of like, it is your turn now, drove me crazy how he did it. And it's at a point where I completely tilted, and I was just like, all I can concentrate now is how he's going to tell me it's your turn, like, because stated on it, and it was like it also came with this weird hand gesture, and I was just like, what is this? Like, why is it? And I realized, like, why am I so bothered by this? Why am I being such a dickhead? In terms of like, and I was like, oh my, okay, stick to toy soldiers.
Fair enough. All right, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting you're talking about your local scene and local TOs and stuff like that, and your approach as well. Now, we'll dive on to the LGT properly now. But as we know, last year predominantly headlined by Chris, with support from Carlo, for example, on the rules side, and Daryl and Scott on other sides as well. Taking over from what has now been the most successful year-on-year growth and also event to date for the game as a whole, and looking to, I guess, push that up to the next level, I guess, at this moment in time, in just trying to keep it at that level, keep it being the most amazing event it can be. But of course, I'll let you talk about the rest. So,
thanks very much. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is on stats, and I'm just going to like speak it through right now. So Song of Ice via UKGT, Lee Athletics Centre, September 30th to Sunday, the October the 1st. Awkward dates, aren't they? Like straggling 2 months.
Yeah.
It's allowed to be a 128-man event if that sells the tickets. And at the moment there's 27 signed up at the moment. So yeah, information like my club, Chelmsford Bunker, presents this. So bring 2 40-point. There's no restrictions on the list, and you can use whatever you want. Do you want me to speak as to why that is the case?
Yes, I would like to, because obviously one of the things that's been consistent in 2 years at the LGT was UK-only releases. The difference this year being that is no longer a stipulation. And there were reasons for that, in part, supporting local stores in the UK, and also a distribution issue. But it will have been a year by this point. And there are some things you've already mentioned today, which are now starting to be a plague on that kind of rule. So yeah, I understand the change, but I don't know if you wanted to explain it for the viewers.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, I'm not a shop. So it's and there's so much when you look at it. There's so much that is not a UK release that has not been out. But it's like, it's really weird. Like, is in terms of like, it sets back a meta in terms of like, hang on, like what that's out and that's come out, come out everywhere. But this thing is still years away, like years not happening. I mean, I did as like the reason I've been told why that was in place before was to help like UK shops. I get it, but equally, it's if it was one or two things, then perhaps that's okay. Well, it's really not, is it? Like, as in like, and it's like, well, I mean, most of the players like that I know that like want to play this game will get hold of the things they want to get hold of, and it just seemed like as a play in terms of when I attended the event last year, I just played in the a Friday day event, or what was it called, like the ELO event,
ELO
the 3 day. Because I was running Warmaster like for the Saturday and Sunday, so but I just like, well, that's really annoying because there's like so many things I can't use, like or I would currently on my current list that I want to use. So,
Greyjoy Heroes 2, for example.
Yeah.
not
So
out.
now, like, look, if you can get your hands on it, you can use it. Like, it doesn't, and it's like, so going forward, like, it means like, as long as you have hold of it and it's released in the game somewhere, yeah, that's there's no one's gonna like check it, like in terms of like, oh, that can't be used yet. It's got to be. I guess our guide will be. It's got to be on War Council,
which was always the metric that was something that was basically a metric for online events before COVID finished, and then became a metric for a lot of events just around the world for a long time. Is as long as it's on War Council, it's fine, because War Council, as much as it is a pain, and last week the update wasn't necessarily right on War Council, but like War Council is a pretty good app and a pretty good thing to keep track of what's. It's also free. Like it's a very good app.
It's in. I can forgive like one or two glitches. Like, it's a shame that Mountains Men aren't staying at 5 points. I quite like them. Like, to be 5 points. And at the moment, they are 5 points. But it's like, okay, we can just pretend that we don't. We can overlook that, can't we? Like, keep them at 5 points is fine. I mean, I'm actually going to use them, which is fantastic. Like, as in, but it's so that was my reasons why. I just didn't. It drove me crazy as a player, and I was like, well, and part of this, and when I was in the running for like, in terms of like, if I was going to get offered this gig or not to run the LGT, my stipulations were, I want to run it in the way I want to run it. In terms of like, as in like, if I'd been offered the gig in terms of like, well, Paul, you're going to join somebody else's team, and like, I probably wouldn't have said yes. But I have been given this exactly the way I wanted it, which was like, here you go, like, you can create the thing that you want to create, and it's like, fantastic, I will. And it's like, as I say, I stand by my conviction, with my decisions, that the levers I've pulled in terms of like, this is the event I'm going to run. I'll plant my oath stone in the floor and defend it. Like a dwarven hero or something. In terms of like, that's what it's going to be. I mean, there are. And I do have my levels of like what I would consider success, but I would much rather run the event I want to run than an abridged than compromise on it.
Yeah, which is fine, and that's actually something that's quite important of anyone. Is that, and we know full too well at Stats, definitely Carlo has been through this, myself as well in some cases. Trying to bend to the will of one or two people doesn't work, because when what's happening is you end up with lots of different ideas, and all you can ever do is make decisions based on information that you have, and sometimes you'll go against the information because you actually still think that actually that information that I've got is not the way that I think is best, such as the releases, right? The releases has been overwhelmingly positive for UK only for the last couple of years. But also, that was in a situation where the list was small, and last year the list wasn't small. The list was getting bigger. That list is only going to get bigger. For example, Martells are now on that list. The entire faction of Martells.
Exactly. And Martells have some fantastic games design in them. Like, in terms of like having played them in a few events, like using a Martel's like written in Polish. It's like they have some great design there. Like, and it's such a shame that to restrict them so you can't see them. In terms of there's and again like as in like, as I say, like, I think I'm more upbeat than most in terms of like, I hate apathy in people. I can't stand it. Like, I'm more I'm more of a positive kind of person, and it's like and I guess for me the glass is half full. But it's like there is some great mechanics in Martells, and let's see them on the table.
I definitely agree with you, actually, on the topic of Martells. I mean, not talking about the strengths per se, but one of the big things that they've tried to push with the design is this idea of, and I don't think they've achieved it from my kind of like trying to find the right solution, trying to find the fixes, trying to find the best answers brain, but you definitely look at the design and you can see they've definitely tried to push it into this idea that actually activating NCUs first isn't always the best decision. Now, I'm sat here and I'm like, yeah, but most of the time it is, unfortunately. But I can see that the design of the Martells is to try and make you think about that, is to try and make you think about how can you optimize the order of your things on the board to make it the most effective, because you're going to get bonuses for doing so. And I think that has that whole design aspect, around the unactivated, like, cutthroat style stuff, is I think a positive for the faction, and it does show a design strategy that is interesting. Doesn't have to be good. Doesn't have to be good.
Also, it's like it's in before we're going off topic here, aren't we?
Yeah, a little bit.
But the having a commander that is represented away from the battlefield. So like as a command, that's like it's going back to when you could do, like, you would have NCU commanders. It's like some of it is like coming back to old ideas again, and others of it is coming up with fresh stuff. And it's like, okay, the classic thing is Doran Martell NCU, whatever version of it is, where he scores 2 points on terms. What is it? Turns 4, 5, 6.
Yeah,
4, 5, 6. Well, that's fantastic. And like, in terms of like, hang on, I can win the game with that, like, by doing this. And it's like, how do you get around that? And then there are some factions where the counter is built into you. Like Lannisters can turn off an NCU's ability in their core deck. Like, that won't work against a Lannister player, because like as soon as I realise, well, that's what I need to do, I'll just hold that card until you like turn 5 and like, there you go, like, you're not going to score like 2 points there, and you're not going to score 2 points. It's like it's not that guy. The guy's paying. That's all his abilities is to score points off the table, and you can just shut it down with some factions, and then some factions you can't, and that makes it rock paper scissors. It is a 2-list event. Like if the people that I see that do really well at events take different lists, like in terms of their 2 lists, and they have in their mind what they're going to play against which, and they can't answer everything. And it's like, because as sort of I got my competitive likeness in terms of like of wargaming from War Machine, which was always a 2-list event. And you need to choose, like, well, how does my Signar answer Crix? Like, okay, it's like Crix is going to flood the table with 50, 60 models. Like, how do I deal with that? And then when I'm not playing Crix, I need something that's good against other things. And it's like, and in the golden moment we have of Song at the moment, and unless you say and it is a golden moment, think about those 2 lists. If you take 2 lists which are basically the same except you swapped 1 unit, you're just giving the advantage to an opponent.
Yeah, it's actually, I was having this exact conversation with a guy called Isaac last night, and he's asking me about like how he would like form his 2 lists, and he basically said, right, I've got a 7 activation Kevin list I want to run, and then I thought I could run this alternative 7 activation Kevin list, and I was kind of like, but they sound kind of the same.
Yeah, what do you do different? It'd be really interesting format for an event where you had to use both lists.
Yes.
Like at some point, like you had to use both. Like that would be really interesting.
I think I'm a big fan of those events. The only problem with those events, which is the only thing I foresee, is it depends on the number of rounds, right? It always depends, because if you get 3 rounds, you end up going to game 1 and you'll just pick one of the 2 lists. Doesn't really matter. You go to game 2, and if you get an opponent where you've got like let's just say you've got a good morale list and you're against like a Baratheon player running Stannis, morale checks, you're going to pick your morale list, and if you happen to pick that game 1, it forces you into that 3rd game pick, which is always unpleasant. But that's the same boat for everybody, right? That I think with 4-round events and things like that, I see it as a lot less of an issue. And larger events, I think. But 3 rounds is always unpleasant with 2 lists because of that. But yeah, I mean,
so we're dragging it back to the LGT. Is there any other points you want me to address with why there's no restrictions on lists?
No. No, I think the non-restricted bit is fine. It makes sense to me now why that decision was been made, and I think that it's and this is, again, it might be a decision that someone doesn't agree with, but I think that the UK, because bearing in mind this is a decision being made now, that doesn't affect now. It actually is a decision that is now 6 or 7 months ahead of us, and if we get to that time. I do think it's
Zach runs the LGT. Like the tickets go on sale, and they're already on sale. And I wanted to get then stats squared down. But as soon as someone was buying a ticket, and it will not, say this is the format. People pay money. It's not nothing. 50 quid isn't nothing to,
no.
And it's like it's this is the event it's going to be. And it's like so. If you're like rather than if you have an issue, rather than rail against it, embrace it. Like is it have a why not try it like before you turn up? It's like, but there we go. So carrying on explaining it, like the list submitted locked must be the list you use. That's obvious. List lock is going to be the night before at 8 o'clock because that's after I've got my kids in bed. Then I've got a 5-year-old, 3. Well, no, he's just turned 4. A 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it's like so that routine is everything.
Yeah.
So up to a 7-round event if more than 64 players attend. So basically, I'd like obviously I hope it does sell out. But if it doesn't sell out, and if it's under 64 players, you won't need a 7th round. But so I'm hoping it will sell more than that. So there is a 7-round event, which would make it 4 rounds on the Saturday and 3 rounds on the Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah. But only sales can drive that. So here we go. The upper ranked tables games are to be played on a 2-hour death clock, with each player getting 1 hour of time. Anything that is your decision is your own time. Round 1 will be a random draw and will not use death clocks unless enough clocks for all tables can be sourced. What do you want to what questions do you want to ask me about that?
I will always have questions about death clocks. So we saw clocks come into the game effectively last year, where we saw clocks enter the game, and it's still debated. Well, it's difficult. It's not debated whether or not they're needed, really. I think certainly a lot of the top players would tend to say, yes, clocks are probably required. I think, realistically, it's the resolution of the death clock. And I think that is always going to be the question that someone would have. So, 2-hour round, 1 hour each makes sense. That's fair. But the decision to make it a death clock, that's what I'm interested in your decision there. And when you say death clock, I assume that means you literally just lose if you run out of time?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Because that's a way to lose. Okay, so War Machine events always used to be as in a turn time, but then that would limit didn't fit, and then you went to death clocks where you had a total amount of time that you can then burn how you see fit. Now, so I've been using clocks in game systems for a long time. And what it does is, to me, it answers far more questions. It solves far more problems than it gives, basically. Now, okay, so as a straight off the bat, how did the final in the last LGT finish?
It finished on time.
Did it finish on time?
Yeah, it did finish on time. Both players, the round, I should say, the game round finished on time. Not both players, finishing with equal amount of time or anything like that, but the game round literally finished. So 2 hours was up, or whatever time it was. It's 2 hours. I can't remember now. Gosh, so long ago. The 2 hours was up, and the game had to be finished because of the round being ended at that time.
So, because now if you're running an event, now it's easy. The thing is, it's easy to criticize, but hard to create. Now, if you're running an event, things need to get done. Things need to finish. And you need to then put in. You don't want everyone hanging around too long. You need to put in the data. You need to get. That's when your team of and I'll be heading up a team of Chelmsford bunker guys who are volunteering their own time to run this event. None of them get paid for this. And it's going to. So things need to finish. Not every table will be on a clock, because I simply am not going to own 64 death clocks, 64 clocks. It's well, who's going to buy them for me? So, but I will put the upper tables on clocks, and that might be only the top 16. It might be only the top 10. If I can get hold of clocks, I will put clocks on the table. And take the time to explain to them how you use them. It's simply when it's your decision, it's your time, and you've got an hour to play this game, and he's got an hour to play this game, or he or she. But the game, like to me, Song has evolved to needing them mainly because of two main big points. If you've ever been slow played by somebody, it's not a great experience. Like if someone gets ahead on points and then just goes to takes ages to do anything, and gamers essentially, in my experience, need boundaries. Like if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, and it sounds like, so it's like they're purposely going to play slow because they're ahead. Because if it finishes early, they end up winning because it finished on. We didn't get to round 6, we got to round 5, and I was ahead 6-4 or something. Mm-hmm. It's not a great experience. But equally, Martels, they have mechanics that require the game to be in turn 6. Now, and that's not only like an NCU choice, that is in their core deck as well. Like they have core cards which are like battle endurance, for example, gets better as the game goes on. You have to be able to get to turn 6. Like and if you can't get to turn 6 because the other person is running an 11 activation free folk list or something and taking 5 minutes to roll a dice, well, is that totally fair? And it's like, I say not every table will be on clocks because I simply don't own them, but the upper tables will be. And if you're like, if the clock issue is like bothers you, well, are you actually going to win this event? Mm-hmm. Like, because you're not going to win this event, you're never going to see them anyway. But on those upper tables where things start to matter in terms of right, this is this game will need to be played tightly, and Song is a system where you can have, say my club has been playing on clocks now for quite a while. Now, obviously, a lot of us came from a chess clock background, like we have like War Machine, and I've had the experience of putting War Master on a chess clock, which I won over one community by obviously a smaller community than Song of Ice and Fire because it's quite a niche game, War Master. But now clocks are the standard there. It's like it really helps you run an event, and it focuses the mind. Like in terms of like all right, it's my turn. There's a lot of triggers, a lot of interrupts in Song. So you should, and it should be, and in terms of getting played right. Like classic one is Lannisters hear me roar. It's like, okay, I've done some take a panic test, and they immediately roll the dice before you get a chance to I'm playing this damn card on top of it. And it's like, so there is some when you get used to playing in that way, there's some steps you go through with people. But it is a way of showing that your turn has ended in terms of okay, that's my activation done, your time. And we've gotten used as a group of players, talking through the phases of the turn. Right, okay, I've got to start a turn card. Have you? Right, you've got, you're playing yours first because it's your priority, etc. And you knock through the steps quite nicely. And and we found that 2 hours is a long time, play a game. If you're conscious about it, that it's you can spend time thinking about things. Of course you can. But that is your time to manage. And ultimately, if one person runs out of time, the other opponent has to get a crushing victory because they can't be penalised in any way that their opponent ran out of time.
I mean, there is the option where someone who runs out of time can no longer do anything rather than it being a death clock. So they literally just have to sit there. Everything is a pass. They can't do anything. They're not allowed to do anything. Can't play cards, triggers, or anything like that.
I suppose so, but in the sake of keeping it clean, in terms of having that hard finish, and it's it's not fun to run out of time, but ultimately it's you who controlled it. It's not you can't turn around and say, well, my opponent didn't let me do things. Well, no, in terms of my opponent didn't let me play fast enough. Well, it's that's your time. He or she can't control how you're managing your requirement, and it's to me, it's where until Martels had turned up, it was nice to have. Now it's oh, hang on, this is the thing that the game system needs. And to say, but I would say if someone is on the fence about the LGT in terms of I don't want to attend if it's on a clock, etc. I'm sorry to hear that, but there is a reason why it's being done. also as a TO with a team who aren't getting paid like to do this thing, is going to make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah, no,
because
definitely.
because we'll come along and in terms of like, and if like we hear the clock's alarm, it's an obvious ending to it in terms of like that clock is beeping as like who's run out of time here. It's like, oh, right, decision made.
What would be the instance, just on the off chance, because I can foresee it happening, especially if we talk about international players, and I think this is the big one, is it's the international players coming across. Having been to international events myself, there will be TO questions come up with international travellers, definitely, because misunderstandings on a rule interaction.
Of course, yeah.
You know.
And my favourite game last year in the Friday was playing a German guy, because I can speak a bit of German, and that was quite fun to me. Yeah,
That's awesome. What would a player do in the instance where the two players do have a disagreement?
Yeah. So what should happen, is that they should get a TO's attention, and of course there'll be quite a few TOs.
Yeah.
The TO come over, stop, pause the clock, answer your question. As soon as the question's answered, press pause. Only they pause the clock.
Yeah.
What I've found is gamers press it themselves, but
it's going to happen.
It should be a TO doing that.
Yeah, that's fine. Obviously, that allays one fear, and I know that
the round times will have a bit of flex in them.
Yeah,
it's not like, okay, so the first round is from 10 to 12, and the second round starts at 12.
Yeah,
like there is a bit of flex time, because obviously if we need to give a rules query, me or one of my guys, we're going to have to do that, and the only fair way to do that is off a clock. But it's the decision they make at that moment. If it turns out they gave the wrong decision, I'm afraid it's like any sport, isn't it? In terms of like, that's what the ref does. That's how the ref ruled it at the time.
Yeah.
There is no judge system for song. There's not like, oh, do this qualification and you got and you're like, can run a professional a tournament. So that doesn't exist. Like, we'll address the most common questions in like in a FAQ pack or something like beforehand. So we're spotted up, I guess, on like what the most common problems are of the moment, because you can't predict. Who knows what's out in 6 months' time? Like what anything might be, but we'll do our best.
Yeah, I mean, from an experience point of view, I think releasing an FAQ before the event is obviously very strong. And you mentioned doing it there, but also, don't be afraid to wait until about a few weeks before the event, like literally 2 weeks, because generally speaking, unless something gets released the week of the LGT, which it can happen, but it's very unlikely, then you can cover most of the rules interactions you'd expect. And it doesn't matter how good a TO you are and how well versed in the rules you are, there will probably be interactions that will come up that you're like, well, hang on, what does happen here?
Yeah. There are obviously subtle interactions which are very situational, and you're like, how play out now? It's like, but we'd say it would do our best, and it's like, so what that anyway. Yes. The point of it, the clock should then produce. It should produce like the winner is the winner, like no question. Like it's an issue that is put to both of you in terms of like not one of you's on clock and the other isn't. It's like you both got to play in this time, and it's like one of you needs to beat the other one, and it's like in that time frame, it's like it's like in tennis, you don't have an hour to serve the ball. No. Like in tennis, in terms of like you've got to serve the ball within I think like a minute or 2 minutes or something, or you lose the point. It's like this, and and as I reiterate, to me it solves more problems than it gives, and it does give some problems. Obviously, like it's like some people find it very alien or they find it more. They put pressure on themselves. They don't need to be like they put, oh my god, I'm like on time. They put loads of pressure, and they like make too many rash moves in turn one, where it's like, you've got hours, a long time. Like, I mean, most of the time, like on our club night, we'll like get there at 6:30, and by starting by like 6:45 or 7 o'clock, we've played 2 games by the time by 10 o'clock. So it's like no one comes even close to like these time frames. So it can do, but it's like but we found that not many people need that much time.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, like, because an hour of your own time. That's in you making decisions. It's you moving your models. That's like you initiating stuff. It's really a lot.
It is. An hour is a long time.
Somebody can't turn around and tell me that it's not enough. It's like you need longer. Like it's only 40 points we're playing at here. And for me, it's just something that my local scene like had debated a lot, etc. But like the playing Martells in a couple of events, like it was like it needs to have it. I'm afraid, like is it if otherwise you are like it's really hard for that Martell players. Like their stuff is not like their stuff is like static wise in terms of like is weaker because it needs to go the distance. And a Martell player like might be trying to play the distance. Well, if the distance is arbitrarily cut off from them, it's really disadvantage to them.
Yeah, it is, and not just obviously Martells. You know.
To me, it like really highlighted that that was the clear one. Is like that's why we need this thing.
Yeah.
And when you get I found that like on a clock, it makes you a better player basically. Mm-hmm. Like in terms of like because then you can like you can speed up when you want to speed up. In terms of like I need to speed up. I spent 5 minutes thinking about a thing, and it's like and it's like that isn't going to make much difference. Quick, make that move. Like people can waste time doing insignificant stuff in terms of like an activation that like didn't make any difference, and micro measuring out like something that doesn't make any difference. Mm-hmm. Like you're just simply activating to pass the turn. It's just like okay, Cersei's gonna take swords but do nothing with it just to deny you from having swords. Your activation. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Post brings up a good point, and it is always the eternal problem, and kind of luckily I think it is a big thing because there's no clocks being used in round one, right?
Well, that's simply because if I find 64 chess blocks, then there is. But there ain't gonna be. I'm not gonna find that. Like so, that's my get out. Then. Like because then somebody could say it was unfair.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And then say many new or casual players will not take part in events with clocks being used. I've never agreed. I mean, I do agree with it a little bit. I think newer players would potentially be put off a little bit, but I don't think it's a significant put off if you can say, look, guys, because we need round standard, this is the case.
Yeah. I mean, like, as in, I'd hope so. I mean, like, what do you want the LGT to be? Do you want it to be the biggest, like, event and thus producing, like, as in, do you want it to be a competitive thing? Like, in terms of like, what, do you want it to be something where to win it means something? Mm-hmm. Like, well, then it requires these things that I'm in my mind. It can only make the game overall better in terms of like this is because obviously Simon like they do their play testing, but then they release stuff and it's like played a lot by a lot more different people, and it's like and then it's like it like narrows it down to like what is good. Like the batch of results from last LGT, if you knew nothing else about Song, you would see there was a problem. Like, hang on, 8 out of 10 like placing the top 10 were one faction with one commander, like double lists of Mance Raider. Like, if you didn't know anything about the game system, you'd be like, is there more than one faction in this game? Mm-hmm. And you would see there was an issue. And like the two lists. I mean, I know Jacob very well. He plays in our regular events. It's like the two lists used in the final of last year. There was one thing that was 5 points between the two lists that we used in the final. Like what? It's like that tells you something. Like and if you want my opinion on the patch and in terms of like the update, is it good or is it not? I'll answer that question if that's a question you want me to answer. But it's like you would see that but the LGT results last year showed problems of the game system, and I'm really hoping this time round it's like a complete mix mash of what gets up into the top 10.
Mm-hmm. I think it's certainly at early stages of 2020 I call it 2023 now. It's not 2023, but we can call it 2023.
The best time would have been to run such a thing if you knew it. Would have literally been the week after the update.
Arguably,
where it'd be so fresh that who knows what's gonna end up on top.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna have 6. It's about 6 months away. We're gonna settle into this update, and we'll then there'll be I'm sure there'll be the best list going around, like for a faction, or that will feature very heavily. But as an nature of a game system,
definitely. Yeah, cool. Well, that's obviously talks about death clocks, but also talking about ultimately talking and discussing a little bit about balance there as well. I guess the only other question I really had, because it's not on here.
Yeah.
So, terrain. Are you a random terrain guy, or are you a chosen terrain guy?
As in the players roll the dice and place terrain?
As in, they randomly generate terrain using the table.
I mean, we've always played games where start roll for terrain. First player chooses the bit they want and places it, and goes back and forth.
Cool. So chosen terrain is.
You're right. It's not there. Yeah, but it's chosen terrain.
There you go. It's only a small thing because I literally played a game of random yesterday, and I was explaining the difference between the two, and that was it. Cool. No, I mean that's all the information there. You've mentioned about FAQs, you've mentioned about tickets, which I'll go through in a second anyway. Now, tickets are on sale, and they are available, and you can purchase them here at lgtpresents.co.uk. God, lgtpresents.co.uk/ASOIAF.
For anyone, if there is a comment or before anyone else, I have no impact on the ticket price. I do not have any say in that. I'm not considered. It's nothing to do with me.
No, it's the LGT's ticket price, right? They set as a standard, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which has gone up slightly from last year's ticket prices. That's probably down to many other factors, including the LGT getting bigger, but also the LGT, the price of things just going up in the UK.
Yeah, London Lee Athletics Centre for a weekend, probably for 4 days, probably costs a penny.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. So if you do want to check it out, it's on the website there. Link will be going into chat in just a moment. Feel free, have a little look around, get your ticket. There is a flex version available again, isn't there? Do you know what the flex version gives you this year? Is it just?
I think, as I understand it, it gives you the ability to get a refund, like later in the day. I mean, remember the LGT exists for 40k.
Yes.
If no other game system really essentially matters aside from 40k, because Zach wants the 1,000 players to play in as 40k to get the title as the biggest wargaming event that's ever been done. And I really hope he gets it. I mean, it's quite a sight to see that many people playing. To walk down the middle of the 40k table, it just all going off. It's that's quite a thing to see. But remember, even though this could be a 128-man event, it's still small fry.
Oh yeah, I think what was so good last year and is so brilliant about what the LGT as a whole is, it's not really about a Song of Ice and Fire per se having a big event. It's a Song of Ice and Fire having a good sized event there.
Yeah.
But it's the presence, and I mean, last year you'd have seen it as well. The number of people who would just stop to look, to talk about the game, and you no doubt will have players who you've met since the LGT last year or the year before who've gotten into the game because they saw it's been played either at your club or at the LGT or other events, and it's that side that we just can't. That's the side you want to replicate more and more. It's just getting people to see it.
Also, in terms of as a community, it's this is the kind of event that attracts an international crowd.
Mm-hmm.
In where it is, etc. It's on the outskirts of London, as in and the size of the event, like that will attract a lot of that can attract a lot of international. Like me running a song event like an alternative LGT in somewhere in Chelmsford isn't going to attract like the international crowd, because where the hell's Chelmsford? It's like, but know where London is. So it is important to piggyback on these kind of big events. And in terms, and it's it's quite a spectacle as a venue. It's a really good one for a wargaming place, because it's spacious, it's well lit, it's airy. Like Zach has always tried to improve on what an issue was the previous year. I mean, I do think that last year, like, they had enough food van. Like, admittedly, I got to go eat when I wanted to, because I was running a War Master, so I just went and got something to eat in between a round, like when a round was on or whatever. But I do believe they solved the problems of not enough food. Like, it seemed like there was seven kitchens I saw outside.
The 2021 was a bit grim. I mean, we didn't. Our lunch break wasn't timed at the same time as 40k, but I remember the 40k queues being massive, and I mean massive. Whereas this year they were big, but it wasn't like you were waiting half an hour to get food.
Exactly, and ultimately, if you're someone who, like, if waiting 20 minutes to get a bit of food is like unacceptable for you, bring a packed lunch. It's like, as in, I've always found that people are very easy to complain where they just won't help themselves in terms of, like, with these things. It's like, well, no one's stopping you doing that. It's like, I've always thought that we should have, like, combine. You actually use the athletics, like, in the like, you should go play a round of song and then do like a 400-meter sprint.
It's like chess boxing all over again. A Song of Ice and Fire running.
Like that, and first person back gets a point.
Oh dear. Doug was saying the food was pretty good last year. It was. The food was good actually last year.
And then, I remember, like, so the LGTs moved around, and like the year it was at like, Emirates Stadium. Oh my god! And it's like, and there were issues over like the scenery quality of 40k. Well, now it's really good, I think. I mean, not that I don't play 40k, but clearly every table has got a decent amount of scenery on it. And it's like, no one's like complaining about that anymore. It's like, as I say, it's I do think Zach is in it to win, in terms of is in it for the right reason. Like, and he does try to. If you try to improve on something, then that's all you can ask, isn't it? Like, so to say, bring it back to the song LGT. My bar of success, I would love it to sell out. Of course, I would, but it doesn't have to sell out. Like, because this is the event I want to run, and so I'm happy with that. It would be great if it does sell 128 players. You'll always get some dropouts on the day. You always will. So if it is sold out, yet you can still be there, then you might well get in anyway, because there'll be somebody won't turn up. Like, that's inevitable in this size of people. Like, I think 115 started it last year. Is it last year? Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's always stuff happens, like kid emergencies, family emergencies. It like always, but it's but I'm much rather run the event. I think that it needs to be, than compromise on that. And I might not do it again. I don't know. Like, in terms of because somebody has to, I'm a gamer first. I'd rather be playing in this personally. I wouldn't win it, but I'd rather be playing in it. But I'm willing to give it over to something and create something that is hopefully people enjoyed and took notice. I mean, I haven't yet been introduced yet to Simon in terms of as a person, in terms of running this event. I guess that's going to come up sooner or later. But
good luck.
Whatever. That should be an interesting conversation. But we shall see. We
shall. They certainly, Asmodee UK and Simon are they're not the best at communicating.
But it was. I was like, when I was looked at this as an opportunity, I was just like, if I get it the way I wanted to get it, then oh yeah, then I'll be really interested. And I was given the reins to do it. So fantastic. Like I say, I'm making no promises that like another group of players might want to have a go at running it next year. Who knows? Like that could be a thing. It could be something that we start sharing around responsibility of.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. All right then. So that's realistically that is the LGT. That is where we're at.
Yep.
In terms of disseminating information as things get revealed, as things get announced, as more things come out, like the FAQs and things like that, is that just going to be through the stats page? Are you going to be putting up on the UK A Song of Ice and Fire Discord? I think it is.
Yeah. I imagine those two venues. I mean, it'd go on the stats page and get announced on the Discord channel around people, like to let people know. It should, I mean, it should be really cool, and it's like, and I do hope that we get a good level of competition on those top tables, and the absolute winner deserves it in terms of like takes it. I'll be really interested to see what the lists are, because like right now I couldn't tell you what obviously is going to win, or what will be up. Like I'm not sure. Like in terms of, do you want my opinion on the patch? Like
go on. What's your initial thoughts? It's been 6 days, right? Well, 5 and a bit.
Well, so it for me, it needed to address like 5 things, and it addressed 4 of them. So I'm quite happy with that. It needed to do something to Mance Raider. It did. It needed to do something to the free folks. There's too many of them. It did. It needed to address it needed to address the relentless. Like it did. And in my eyes, like, the only thing it didn't address is free folk raiders themselves as a unit. In terms of like they're still the same.
Yep.
But in my eyes, it addressed a lot of the issues that were causing it. Yeah, and so it's like, personally, I would like to see Night's Watch go back to limiting the amount of attachments or cards they can have on their units, like an old rule where it was like it used to be 1, but you could change it, but then one of the commanders could get you 2. Like, but that is their thing. Like that is in when I play against Night's Watch, I'm not going to be able to wipe them out. I'm going to take one or maybe a unit of theirs before the other units get powered up. And now that Relentless has gone away from a maneuver, that big issue is like that. One of their big issues is gone. Though our regular like good Night's Watch player comes up with stuff that I can't. But he'll beat you anyway. Like in terms of what, like what? That's their strength of their options are so good. Like in Night's Watch, it's like impressive. But also, it's like now it's like it's in like it shouldn't. There isn't an actual dominance, hopefully, of like Mance Raider and that free folk list that was getting passed around. And where basically, as long as nothing's worth more than like 4 points or 5 points, it shouldn't hopefully be as obviously dominating. I mean, like obviously as a Lannister player, having Joffrey back in the game and like points dropped off things is like fantastic. Though I've already got my win in organised play with Joffrey, so now I'm like I was playing him before it was cool.
Oh, fair. That's what it is. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see. I think Night's Watch. I mean, from a couple of games I've played since the patch, I think Night's Watch are looking pretty good. I think Outflank, specifically the change to Outflank, is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I tried that in so that's been my first game since the update, was trying out Outflank. Interesting. Yeah. You can guard against it quite well, and you can play scenery to guard against it as well. It's like, right, okay, it's cool. It's like it wasn't really playable beforehand, and now it is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely playable. And I think that there are some factions. I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that Night's Watch can do some dirty things with Ranger Vanguard now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think a lot of factions are going to lean on certain tools in Outflank. Certain factions I might include it, but I don't see them leaning on them heavily. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I think there are some issues with it in that I think I still don't know if they've done enough, and I still think that if we give it 3 or 4 months, whether or not there'll be enough variation in what people pick. Like you were saying before, like Mountains Men, it's a shame that Mountains Men weren't reduced to 5 points. You know, that is a big shame. And it also would have been good to see the likes of some of the other underpicked stuff like Sentinels in Baratheon and other things there get a bit of love. But on the most part, I think they did fix the clear problems, which is a good thing.
I mean, you were never going. Sorry, I just need to get a charger for my phone.
That's all right, don't worry.
But you're never going to fix everything on such a game system. You just can't. Like Greyjoy seemed to have gotten damaged to play this update, and it's like, were they? It's that's quite interesting. Like, as in, sorry for them, but it's like, well, basically get back in your boat, you sea pikey. So that's there's obviously no changes to Martells, and it's like because they're not really out yet, are they? Like in a lot of places.
No, not in the UK. What's a Martell pool?
Yeah. So that's like okay, so they couldn't get addressed a lot because of that issue, but it's like as a punter of the game, in terms of it's simply just as a player of it, it's like it's cool to see that they do these updates. It's like is in remember, it's like you could have a company that won't engage with you, or you could have a company that does just gives you an update every every 2-3 years or something. It could basically, I'm not justifying them doing a bad job, but it could be worse.
Yes.
And again, vote with your feet. It's like, so it's made me want to because before this update, I could not be a good free folk player. As in I couldn't do it. I tried everything I tried. Lannisters just was not working. Now game's back on again, and it's like, we can give this another shot. It's like and the subtle things of them changing expert duelist to 5+. It's like, it used to be 3. Now it's a 5. It's like that isn't a guarantee, is it? In terms of well, that makes you think it's will they get that? Will they try for it? It actually comes at or will you do an automatic wound? It's instead, it's and the risk reward of that has been rebalanced nicely. I mean, personally, it's the things for the long term of the game, in my eyes, as someone it helps design another game system, is that you're going to need to address the points issue at some point. If you basically say, if you doubled the points to 80 points, so that was the normal size game, and everything was twice the points, but then he gave you more increments of point adjustment. So when someone say, "Oh, that's a shit 6-point unit, but a good 5-point unit," so it needs to be a 5.5 unit, doesn't it? So if you gave more increments, you could do such a thing. Other ways is the more they release, the harder it is that it's going to get them to balance neutrals in terms of neutral units in other factions. I mean, so every time they release a neutral unit, because at the moment they're very generous, you can have up to half your points as a neutral force. It's very hard. That could be everywhere, and it's good that they did something to Flayed Men, for example, because they were getting everywhere. This unit, and at least they gave him something that was different, less powerful. Good, okay, but there's easy ways they could do it. Easy way, and in terms of just simply saying okay, now it's 25% neutrals, and that gives a reason that neutrals are different. Then, or getting out more theme forces. You can make Boltons, for example, their own faction. You could, they've got more choices than you think, in terms of they could easily become their own faction. Or the next neutral heroes box will be very interesting, because I'm imagining there'd be a Golden Company commander who gives some benefit to Golden Company. And then you could have a Golden Company, you can run a Golden Company list at the moment, but have a Golden Company commander, I don't know, drops a point or two of Golden Company or something. Is in the neutral stuff that gets released is always the most interesting in terms of a design mechanic. And also to see now, well, they could do so. I mean, they don't have to stay limited in the universe they're in. Like in terms of like you could do House of the Dragon, like you could do Royal Targaryens.
Yeah.
Like what's stopping you from like okay, so this is Targaryens from 300 years ago. Does it matter? No. Like as in like you can play Ned Stark in the game and he's dead. Like so it's like you can do things like that. They don't have to stay limited, and they can really expand out. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I can think of ways they could do White Walkers, like as in the Knights.
Yes.
But the moment they do, they're printing money basically.
Oh
like,
yeah.
They would be the most popular faction.
It's that, and I genuinely believe if they ever do, and I do believe Dark Sword can do it. But if they ever do Knights of the Vale properly, and you have, don't get me wrong, Tully Cavaliers are nice and Knights of Castle Rocks are nice, but they're old sculpts now. If you could release mounted armored knights that genuinely look like, or even dismounted knights, and get it right.
But if you can get 2 boxes out of Great John, so you can have Great John Berserkers and Great Johns with big axes, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Like that's like a House of the North, and you get 2 boxes out of that. You can certainly do House Aaron. Right, what you need, like, okay, so they have some squires, that's a unit. You have some spearmen, that's a unit. You have some like border guards or whatever, like that's a unit. Then you've got the main thing, which is like House Harren, like heavy knights, the Knights of the Vale. Yes. And it's like, and you can have a NCU as the Moon Door or something. Place the Moon Door. There you go. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, they could do, and like, I'm open, Simon, to ideas if you like. But like, there really is that. They are not limited. If they, the other old thing is obviously is like as someone who's played a lot game systems. While you keep it, if you keep it a single D6 system, like that gives you less increments of change in terms of like it's too big a change for such a game. But if you made it like a D8 system, for example, that would again kick the doors down in terms of creativity, in terms of scale of success. But it's I personally think that unless they address those issues, it's going to get very hard for them to balance things going forward. Like, I'm not saying they can't do it, because the Martells are really, I think they're really impressive in terms of games design, like there. And it's like if they keep doing that for whatever faction comes next, if they're doing another faction, I assume they are, then it really is a golden time at the moment, because you do need a decent amount of factions in a game system for it to be interesting. Having 2 or 3 or 4 isn't enough for a big event. Like, you do need like lots of different and you can create some sub factions. Like, you're always going to have that like the most impressive result of the LGT was it Tom Tyler, who came somewhere like 4th with neutrals, like with using 2 regular Bolton lists, which didn't, like, how did he do so well? Like, that was the most impressive result of the whole event, like him doing that, because then he's a lovely guy, played him, and it is just like, it's like he's getting results out of, like, it's very impressive. It was just like, well done. But you could do so much with it, and ultimately, it is, to me, it's like there's still stuff in Lannisters which I haven't used much, and I want to use. So at the moment we're badge collecting, so we're trying to get a win with every commander in organised play.
Yes.
I didn't realise that was a thing until someone told me it, and I was like, then I looked back through stats and I was like, what haven't I won with? I've got 3 Lannister commanders left to win with, and that's like, okay, well that's going to keep me interested. Like, and all of my results have always been in events, like in terms of in play. Not that means it, like, to some, it's like you say, but it's like, so okay, that there's still a lot you can do with this game system. It's not, I don't think it's in, like, it doesn't have to be in, it's like, it's in its golden moment at the moment, but that golden moment can continue. It doesn't need to be in its twilight years in a year or two's time. It's like, it'll be a challenge to them. It's not, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, like, in terms of how you push the game forward and what you do with it. But, we shall see. It's like, it's, I still really enjoy playing it, I would recommend a product if anyone wants to, for the song player that has everything already. I got this bespoke tactics map from this German company, which is in this roll down 4x something mat.
Give me 3 seconds. I'll dig mine out. I think I've got mine. I think I know the ones. Is it blue?
Yes, blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're amazing, aren't they?
It's amazing. If I had resources in terms of say I would have one of those on every table on the LGT. That would be like what you get on a table.
That would be actually amazing.
Well, that's what you could do if you won the lottery, I suppose. There's some great things being as in products that are out there. You can that's it there.
Yeah, that's made by in partnership with Ilya and Yannick over at Tabletop Warden. Lovely guys, Ilya and Yannick, friends of Stats. So absolutely amazing. Quality's really good as well. So
the only product I don't understand what they did as a Kickstarter, which I never understood why they then didn't sell, and maybe it's licensing or something. It's like having the 3D scenery that you could place on top of the 2D scene.
Yes,
and I never understood that was a Kickstarter, and that was like part of the Kickstarter. But I never understood why they then sell that on. Maybe I'm sure there's a good reason why, but it can then, because often when people who don't know Song look in on it, that's what puts them off is the 2D stuff. Yeah,
it's one of those unfortunate things, isn't it? Because I think Song is actually one of the few games when you actually start playing where 2D terrain makes a hell of a lot of sense, much sense.
From War Machine backgrounds, it was we'd play 2D scenery.
Yeah, exactly.
There were specific rules where if you're touching that bit of scenery, it gives you a button. You need to know that. You need to know if you are or not. There's no question. Yeah.
Yeah. But you are right in saying that from an aesthetic perspective, the 3D helps a lot.
The thing that people don't see also when they're looking in on the game, they don't see, if they don't know it, they don't understand what the tactics board is really doing. That's the magic of this game system. That's instead of having 8 colleges of magic, I'm going to fire a fireball, cast dwellers below. It's I'm going to take this position on the tactics board, and it's not. And I'm yet to see a battle report done online. I mean, it takes a lot of production value, obviously, where you really can see the impact of that in terms of that. It's obviously it's a difficult game to stream, and in terms of to get the nuances of what is going on. But then when you're playing, when you play a really good game of Song, it's you have to think about every activation. And that's it's a lovely game system. It's certainly it's I wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
That's actually a very good question. I was going to ask, and we might as well, because we've got a little bit of time left. Streaming. Now, last year at the LGT, various different people did try and stream games. Some was recorded and then released later on as battle reports, streaming done live there. Is that something you're going to attempt to set up as part of Chelmsford Bunker, or are you looking for?
I don't, unless one of my guys suddenly decides they want to.
Okay.
I'm not going to do that because I don't want to basically bite off more than I can chew in terms of I've got to make sure this event runs well. But if someone is doing that, be my guest. If it doesn't require anything from my team, beyond that's anything as then I have no problems with it. Again, it's not, I say, as I've read, I'm not getting paid for this, so it's in terms of I don't mind if you can set it up and that means that your games need to be played on that certain table or whatever. It can be negotiated, I'm sure. It's I'm willing to meet people halfway on something.
That's nice. That's awesome. That's good to know because I do think if we sent the international side, I think a couple of the international guys would love to not necessarily stream but definitely record. And I think depending on where we're at this year, I might be in a position to do the same this year as well. But we'll have to see.
With it, assume it could basically with that question can you do this with just resources that you bring with yourself?
Yes.
If you can, then what's the issue? Then what's going to be the problem, really? Okay, you've got to make sure that if someone else is caught on camera, for example, they're happy with that. But it's common courtesy. But it's if something Song has in terms of running events of Song that has, again, it was really nice for it, is that everyone brings what they need themselves, don't they? In terms of
Yes.
like, you know, there's like people, you know, it's like, so what we'll have at the LGTs, we'll have the space. Let's assume it's the same space, which is like the little raised area up closest to the kitchens, like outside. You know, we'll be given mats. Then everything else we provide ourselves because people bring their, you know, like, you know, and I've got some lovely mouse mat scenery from a Polish company.
Yes.
Like, which is just the same scenery except it's mouse mat material instead of cardboard. You know, like, you know, and you know, as obviously being a Lannister player, I'm into quite fancy things. You know, like, you know, in terms of I have a way like where I put my VPs, and it goes on like from a.
Have we lost Paul? Oh no. Still there. I think we've had a bit of an internet. A bit of an internet. We said we'd do an hour and a half, you see, and it's just gone over an hour and a half. Immediately went over an hour and a half. Doesn't like it anymore. We'll give it a second or two. Thank you very much, Unforgiven Miniatures, by the way, for the $5 donation, which is the first donation we've ever had, or $4.99 donation, I should say. Massive appreciation on that. That will go into a lot of things that we do in the channel, and everything else that's so awesome with being a representative of the game with you guys here. Yeah, I have no idea what's happened there. It's unfortunately have to cut it a little bit shorter than we was hoping for today, I think, unfortunately. But yeah, overall, fantastic. I am absolutely hyped now for the LGT, and basically really looking forward to it. There we go. Unfortunately, Paul's dropped. Really hyped, looking forward to the LGT as a whole, and I think that it's going to go really, really well. We will see if it hits the same numbers as it has done in previous years. We will see how it all kind of lines up. There we have my dog head. There we go. See if it all lines up in for the future as well. And yeah, you know, cool mats and things like that. If people want to bring anything, have extras. Absolutely fine. People were talking to me about where you can find the mat. I have been trying to find it, and I honestly don't have the link currently at hand. But for those of you who do care, the website that it's from is this one here. It is fantasyvelt.de. So you can find them on there, available. How does one donate, Joey W? Use the donate function on YouTube. Alternatively, you can sign up to the Patreon, which is possible as well on A Song of Ice and Fire stats. You'll find the link to the Patreon down here at the bottom, just hidden, or at the top here on the main page. Cool. Well. There was one thing I was going to mention, hoping that Paul was still here for it, and that is effectively the new faction that have been lurking is indeed neutrals. People have said that Boltons may be being released as their own faction. So there you go. That is in the grapevine. We'll just see if Paul wants to quickly jump back on, because he may want to say some last things before the end of the day. But yeah. Well, thank you very much to everyone who has turned up, by the way, today. Really appreciate it, especially those who've donated. That's very, very kind of you. Yeah, we'll see if Paul wants to quickly jump back on. He's just reconnecting. There we go. There we go, Paul. How you doing?
Hello.
Are you back?
Like, sorry about that.
It happens, mate. It happens. Don't worry about it. It is what it is. we definitely. Oh, I think he's gone again. There we go. Oops. He's back again. There we go. Right, Paul. Oh, don't worry about it. Right, okay. So you talk about obviously bringing your own stuff, and definitely like bringing our own equipment for streaming and stuff, but also talking about the ease of like terrain and everything like that. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, was there anything else you really wanted to add onto the whole discussion today, really?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess I've plugged it enough, and I've given my reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, is there any really good questions in the chat group that that were there to answer at all? Was there anything stood out?
There was nothing. People wanted to know where to get the mats. People wanted to know where to get the mats from. So while you were disconnected, I shared the link to Fantasy Velt. Right?
I mean, I'd recommend them. They're really it's one of those things that like when you're playing with it, you like realize, why did I ever not have this to begin with? I love them.
Yeah, definitely. And apart from that, Paul Spurgeon's been ribbing you in chat for basically the entire episode. So
thanks very much. It's nothing that he doesn't do all the time anyway.
Anything else that's cropped up? I think most of it is very so. I think Carly, the Iron Forest, Carly Cavallo might have a link at CMON, so you might want to be able to get in contact with her and see if there's an established link at CMON for that. And apart from that, I think most of the others just talking about what we've been talking about. People like your idea of the moon door, by the way. People were absolutely hyped when you mentioned that.
Why not? Yeah, like as in, I don't know what mechanic it could be, but it could be like either it could be a new zone on the tactic zone, the moon door. And it's it's like a way of like dropping someone through the moon door.
Indeed. So I thank you hugely for giving up your time today, Paul. It's been great to actually properly speak to you, get to know you, and also have you and on the show and talk about your opinions and everything like that. And of course,
if you need me to come back at any point, just let me know. It's like it's all possible. Yeah,
we'll definitely have you back on much closer towards the time. And if not, at the time, we'll definitely have something. Probably the week after of LGT, probably not the Monday straight after because we'll all be knackered, but we'll see.
That makes sense.
And we can have a bit of a tournament rundown, what went well, what didn't go so well, what would you do again if you were doing it again, would there be anything you'd change, which faction do you now hate, all those questions.
Yeah, hot debrief, what we call in the military a hot debrief.
Yes, a hot debriefing. But yeah, no, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you on. Is there anything else you want to plug before you go today?
I don't think so, except that if you find yourself in Chelmsford area and Chelmsford Bunker and you want to play regular tournaments, we run them. So just like a bit of self-promotion of my club in terms of, and really run monthly events. And you could like come meet me in person and give me all your problems.
Well, that's what I'm going to do now is just literally come and give you problems. Not to play, just give you problems.
Yep, fantastic.
I can't cook food tonight, Paul. What do you suggest?
Great. Get married.
Wow. Okay, so I'll just have a quick rundown of some tournaments that's coming up. We've got an event happening tomorrow, happening in Wrocław, Poland. We've got an event happening, an online event, Welcome to 2023. Tom Tyler, of all people, we were just talking about that absolute wonderful guy, running starting this week, running for a couple of weeks over a long online event. Got a 30-point event happening in Gdansk this Thursday, an event happening in Russia on Saturday, and an event happening in Santander this weekend, the Valerian Crown. This is basically the first big event that we're going to see on the new patch. There was the Finnish event that happened this weekend just gone. We'll be probably catching up with Timu at a later date for that. I know he's listening and he was definitely here earlier. If this one wasn't in the calendar, then I would have had Timu on instead, but we'll probably have Timu on next week. So yeah, the first Valerian Crown, big event. I think they've got like nearly 100 people. I think they're at like 80 to 90 people for that. So looking hype for that. There's an event happening in Cheltenham this weekend at Field of Fire at Incom Games, a nice small 16-player event. An event happening in Indianapolis this weekend at Family Time Games. An event happening in Alabama in Madison, the Rocket City 2 for the event down there. 36 players they're hoping to get. I'm really glad that the Rocket City area is really starting to grow its player base. I can remember when they were barely getting 10, and now to see them looking for 36 or more players is awesome. An event happening in Akron, Ohio, in the US as well. An event happening in Los Angeles, California. We've also got an event happening in Clovis, California. Same time, same different place. An event happening in Shanghai this weekend as well as Ile-de-Fur, and a small event happening in Belgium. Songs About Spring, an event happening in Kyiv, Ukraine. Mad respect to those guys. Absolutely mad respect to those guys putting an event on in Ukraine.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Like, that's very impressive.
That was mental. Cool the Night's Watch banners happening at Just Play in Liverpool this weekend as well. Another a small kind of like beginner event being put on, I believe, by Gregors up in the Liverpool group. We've also got Dragon's Den Games March Mayhem in Saskatoon, Canada. Fantastic to see more Canadian groups running events. And also an event happening in Finland starting next week, which I believe is a small kind of regular league they've got running called Joffrey's Coronation. So wow, how many is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 organised play events between now and the next show next Monday. That's nuts, right? Absolutely
pretty good.
Nuts. Great to see. And when's the next Chelmsford Bunker one? I'm going to find it on the list now because it'll be on it somewhere.
25th of March.
25th of March, cool.
Yeah.
I would say I'm coming down, but I definitely am not coming down for that one because I believe that's the same weekend as the Always Winter GT, which I'm going up to.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, it is, sadly. But there we go.
Yeah,
like
No offense meant to you guys down in the southeast, but I think it was quite unlikely most of you guys would be coming up anyway, so it's a long way.
Yeah, quite a bit of a distance. Yeah.
But no, that's awesome. I am going to make it down to Chelmsford event soon. I know Paul said he's offered a kip on the sofa, no doubt. And that would be very much going back to my old haunts, being a southern lad myself. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for joining us again, Paul. Thank you guys for joining us as well, all you lovely audience. And myself and Paul will catch you at some other later date. And between now and then, enjoy Season 2. Take it easy.
Bye.
Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stumpy!